You have to walk the talk. You have to be authentic as a leader. If you're not doing it, they see that.
It is entirely universal. There's other people who are going through this.
For me, a great leader needs to be able to marry three things: vision, systems, and people.
Welcome to Leadership Moments. If this is your first time, and if you are returning, thank you for your support.
This show is about leaders from all walks of life, leadership tips, and maybe even a little of what you wouldn't expect to help you in leadership.
We would appreciate it if you tell someone else about our podcast as we strive to support all leaders that want to just be better.
Let's get on with the show.
Welcome back to Leadership Moments. I'm Stacey Castor, and I'm here with my co-host, Tracy Ann Palmer. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We want to take you behind the scenes into our coaching practices, not just to talk about what we do as coaches, but to share some additional tools that we've brought into our work recently over the past year. And these tools are designed to help with something universal, the limiting beliefs and the stress that all of us as human beings carry. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you're a CEO, a mid-level manager, an entrepreneur, or even a coach yourself. We all have limiting beliefs. And that tells us that what we can and can't do because we have these beliefs inside of us. We all deal with the stress as well that sometimes feels like it runs our lives. And what Tracy and I have both found is that while coaching is very powerful, sometimes clients need something a little bit more. And they need a way to address what's happening underneath the surface. And those subconscious beliefs and those stress patterns, that traditional conversation alone doesn't always shift us. So that's what led us to work on what we're going to share with you today. So for me, that's Psy-K. And for Tracy Ann, it's AO scan technology.
Yeah, Stacey, spot on. I mean, both of us believe that these tools are real gifts. And we wanted to give it to others by informing you about them. There are ways of helping people align more deeply with who they already are without the baggage that holds us back, and we all have it. And just as important, they're only tools we introduce when a client is ready or open to those tools, right? And not everybody is. So this isn't about convincing someone that they need something. It's really about noticing when someone is stuck and offering a doorway, that might help them move forward with greater ease. For me, that doorway has been AO scan technology. When I first encountered it, I was just real curious, but I admit I was skeptical. Could a scan of frequencies really shift how we think, feel, function? And what I've discovered is that the AO scan data is not just, the AO scan is not just about data, it's really about, complete alignment, right? And at its core, it's a biofeedback system for the whole human experience, right? It reads the body's energy frequencies, it identifies where there's stress and imbalance and where is that showing up, whether that be the physical, whether that be the subconscious, or even if there's emotional patterns that we don't even realize we're carrying, some of those from childhood, for example, and then gently introducing corrective frequencies, to bring us back towards balance. And there's things, like advice on supplements and stuff like that for our vitals. So, it's very, very, very comprehensive. And the science can actually sound a little abstract, but the experience is very real, right? So, clients notice a difference immediately with, their calmer mind, they have better sleep, or they have clearer thinking. And even, there's sort of this background noise, let's say, that they're constantly dealing with, right? It works directly with the subconscious and the nervous system. So when stress patterns are limiting beliefs often live, when those hidden loops are balanced, the body relaxes, the mind sharpens, and then people begin to feel like themselves again, not weighed down by all those invisible stresses. So that's why I use it. It certainly helped me, and we'll talk about that. But, it's really a bridge between the conscious, the subconscious, and then between the physical and the mental, which is the piece of me that was really the connector. And it gives people a way to see what's really happening beneath the surface and then actually shift it, which I've never been able to get from any doctor.
Yeah. And, and I want to get into the psyche piece too, but before we move on, Tracy, I'm like, what is it? Like, what do you do when you talk about the frequencies? Just kind of talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a app on my phone, and I can run a variety of scans from basic to comprehensive analysis scans, through leveraging the voice technology. So think of it like read you like an EKG would read you. Okay. But through our voice, yes. Okay. And then it essentially gives you, depending on which scan you're using, a whole comprehensive, including what supplements your body needs, where you have imbalances, physically imbalances, and then ties in also the emotional piece, what that might be causing through emotional. And then it also adds in frequencies and music that will then help balance the entire body. You also have custom playlists. So for instance, I have Epstein-Barr virus, and so it's very important for me to run detoxing frequencies. So I will run detox frequencies every single day of my life, which will allow my body to rebalance.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Very
fascinating.
powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think of no probing, no prodding. This is just you talking and then you listening, and it makes wonders to the body. So just want our listeners to think about that for a minute, because instantly people are like, okay, what is this? What does this mean? So, that resonates a lot with me because that's kind of what I've seen with Psyche as well. My focus has been on the subconscious mind, which are the beliefs that are quietly running the show in the background, and we may not even know it. I don't know if people realize this, but research tells us that 95% of our behaviors and thought patterns are driven by the subconscious. So what does that mean? Think about for a second when you're driving somewhere, if you're driving to a friend's house or you're driving to work, something that you do all the time, and all of a sudden you're there and you're like, I don't even remember the drive. Well, that was your subconscious that was driving you. It was safe. It knew what it had to do because it does it all the time. Riding a bike, walking, all those things are your subconscious. You're not have to consciously thinking about putting one step in front of the other, turning on the turn signals, switch lanes, all that kind of stuff. Your subconscious is kicking in. And that's us the majority of the time. We're not actually operating from our conscious choices, which is a little scary, but it's very true. And so then we're running on our old programming. And often these are beliefs that we've absorbed before we were even 7 years old. So I don't know about you. I don't remember much before 5 years old. So when you think about, I could have absorbed all of these subconscious beliefs and I don't even know it. I don't even remember. It's really, really powerful to be able to say what is really driving my behavior sometimes when we think about those limiting beliefs. So, you can be a senior leader running a multi-million-dollar organization, but if your subconscious holds on to the belief, I'm not good enough, then every decision, every relationship, every risk you take is filtered through that lens. And coaching can help bring awareness to that pattern, but awareness alone doesn't always create that change. And we try different things through coaching. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, that's where Psyche can come in. It's a process that uses simple techniques to help reprogram those limiting beliefs at the subconscious level. And what I love about it is that it's not about fixing anyone. It's about aligning your subconscious with your conscious goals so you can move forward without that internal tug of war that you may or may not even be realizing it's happening. So let me give you an example. I had a client of mine that had a deep fear of speaking and would physically turn red when they were speaking in front of people. Now, this is someone that's been a senior leader for a very long time, so they've had to do it a good part of their life, but it kept happening. we performed a Psyche balance to bring them to what we call whole brain state, which enables your left and your right hemisphere. So now both hemispheres of the brain are enacted when she's thinking about speaking. Now, when this person speaks in front of a group, they're no longer turning red. They no longer have this angst. They just get up there and they do it. Now, of course, you might be like, okay, yeah, I gotta prep still. I gotta be, no, it's not like super easy, but you don't have that angst inside you anymore. She's physically not turning red anymore. That's a complete game changer that has carried forward ever since for this individual.
Yeah, these tools are just so powerful. And, you know, I think the thing that you've just really emphasized, Stacey, is the invisible layers of the human experience. Okay. So those are stress, limiting beliefs, subconscious programming. And these aren't things you can always logically work your way through. Okay. One, you don't even know you have them. They're living in that subconscious. And leaders, especially, are used to solving problems with strategy and action plans. But when the barrier is internal, the solution has to come from a deeper place. So real impact happens when we look at the whole person, the seen, the unseen, the mental, the subconscious, the physical, whatever that might be.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, we both feel that we felt called to be able to do this with these methods. And that's why we wanted to bring it to all of our listeners today into our work. So it's not about replacing coaching. Coaching is absolutely critical, and it should always be the first step before these balances. It's about complementing it. So coaching opens the door to these tools that help you walk through it. And ultimately, the choice to use them always rests with our clients. It's an option. It is never required in our coaching practices. And, when they're ready, these tools can create huge shifts that feel almost effortless compared to years of pushing against the same old walls that I think all of us have kind of done before. So, Tracy Ann, and, we have used these tools ourselves when we think about that. So, one thing that Tracy Ann and I do when we bring practices into our coaching practice, we always do it ourselves first, do the work on ourselves first before we do that. And so I know I feel more clear, calm, and at peace than I ever have in my life. And I can 100% feel that way by using Psyche for myself. And, Tracy, I know you shared a little bit about your Epstein Barr, and thank you for sharing that with our listeners, but is there another personal story of how AO Scan has really helped you personally?
Yeah, there's actually a lot. So when I did a comprehensive analysis, what it showed is that I had 127 emotions over the last 2 years. Now, that is really significant. That's a lot, okay? It then showed how that stress, that trauma, and all the other things that were causing that, where that was showing up in my body, and how that was impacting my health. So again, like looking at both. And then there's this area where there says of high frequency and low frequency. And low frequency is really the subconscious. That's the one that is what you got to fix. Okay. And it's very clear on what that looks like. So between, my Epstein Barr, my Lyme, and sort of my emotional state, stress, all the things sitting in my subconscious, I've literally this year, been working on myself every single day through this vehicle of AO Scan. And what I can tell you is I've noticed my mental state is different. And when I don't do it, if I say I'd go a day without it, my mental state is not good. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fascinating, but it also tells you everything your body needs to support both that physical and that mental state. And it's trying to harmonize, they call it balancing the body, where everything starts to just go into alignment. It's fascinating. Yeah, but it's a personal journey I'm on. It's really, really helping me personally. And it's interesting because we had a podcast the other day with a guy who was talking about some conscious behavior on money, by the way. And he was saying that we grew up, our society, our age group grew up in a framework of, money scarcity. And how his book was really about this whole concept of how to change your subconscious around money scarcity. And I was fascinated by that, because that's obviously what you and I are talking about too. It's those limiting beliefs, right? And I'm like, wow, so it's really, it's becoming, I think there's a lot of research around this. There's certainly a lot of stats around this. This is becoming sort of a new evolution of looking at the body and the mind in a different way, which is just incredible. So we're really at the forefront of all of this, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. And thank you for sharing that. And for some of the listeners that are like 127 emotions, do I have that many emotions? Yes, you do. Uh, and I know with my coaching clients, I use the emotion wheel all the time. So if you've never experienced that, so some people might say, oh, I'm really mad right now. Well, what does mad really mean? And the emotion wheel helps you understand all the emotions that get into angry, mad, happy, sad. And, I highly recommend our listeners to pull up the emotion wheel sometimes and really dig into what the emotion is that you're feeling at certain times when it's really strong. So really, I'm so glad that you shared that with us.
Yeah, and on that, Stacey, I wanted to ask you, what was the first time you realized that coaching alone wasn't enough for some clients?
Yeah. Well, doing it for quite a few years now. I have clients, fortunately, that have stuck with me for a long time. And when we're a year into things and you see these patterns keep coming up, and we've worked on different tools, the person, the client is very engaged, has tried different things, like really gave it their all. And this pattern keeps coming back and keeps coming back. That's the time. That's the time that we say, okay, it's time to maybe do something different here. And again, the client is the one that has to be willing. They have to be ready for this. But that's why I say coaching is first, right? You want to be able to leverage that coaching first and then see, because a lot of times we can shift things just by talking things out and, where things are at. But then we have these limiting beliefs that we see these patterns over and over and over again. I'm sure every listener, if you really think about it, you probably can think about a pattern that keeps coming up in different areas of your life.
Yeah. So how do you decide when to use these tools versus sticking with traditional coaching conversations?
Yeah, that's when the pattern keeps coming back again and again. And then also the client being open to something new and different. Now, some people are probably like, okay, what is this psyche, Stacey? Like, is it hypnosis? Is it that? No, it's not. I actually just facilitate the process. The client is doing all the work. I just walk them through it. And so you're fully aware of what you're doing when you do it. And what I really like about that, Tracy, and that you asked that question is I actually had a client recently that I brought this up to them because we had a pattern that kept coming up. And I said, okay, what do you think about this? And they said, well, is it going to change me? And it's a really interesting question because they're like, well, let me just talk about me, right? Like when I first started on this, I'm like, okay, I finally am like happy with myself. It took me 50 years and I'm finally happy with who I am and what I want to be. And I don't know if I want to change. Well, here's what I have to say about that is it will change you to your desire. It's aligning your subconscious with your conscious, which means the things that you desire, the things that you want, what you are choosing, you are now enabling that potential. You still have to take the action. So is it going to change you? It's going to change you in the way you want to be, and who you want to be and what's stopping you today. So, but Tracy, and I want to ask you, when you think about the first moment you realized that you needed, that coaching wasn't enough and you kind of had to do this, like, what did you do about that? how did you realize that?
Well, I think the first thing for me was going through it myself, because I've done a lot of work on myself over the last 15 months, trying to deal with what I thought were things that were lingering from my past. Okay. And patterns, patterns I kept seeing, both, patterns at work or success, things that I'd get into situations and then there was sort of this recurring disappointment or, just things like that. And I was like, okay, I have to figure out what's going on here. And then knowing that, when you've got these immune system disorders, if you don't protect your emotional state, and, it's like anything, right? You've got to be an optimistic person to get through some of these illnesses. All those things create havoc in your body. So that was, for me, the first thing was, does this work on me? All right.
Yeah.
Because we're all broken in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
We all have opportunities to grow.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so, and everything I always do, I always test on myself first so that I can truly go out there and be able to talk consciously about it and, feel good about the advising it for any of my clients. The second thing, though, is I started to also see that in my clients, back to your point, things are not changing, right? They're showing up, they're investing in themselves, but those recurring patterns are still there because that subconscious and conscious is not lined up. And they don't feel good about themselves because they know something. Your body knows. Your body knows that it's not balanced. It feels it.
Yeah. And we tell ourselves, this is just a moment in time. I'll get through this. I'm just stressed out about this situation. But if you look at the patterns in your life, what is happening, and those are the things that we're getting into, is what that is. Yes, we absolutely go through certain stresses in our life and certain times in our life, and we may never experience those again, and hopefully we don't in some situations, right? But there are things that if you really look at, how did that happen? Why does that keep coming up? And we don't want to admit some things to ourselves. And sometimes we don't even realize it. And, Dr. Bruce Lipton does a lot of work in this. And what he talks about with the subconscious that I just want to bring up real quick is, look, you could be told all these things. And then you're like, okay, I'm never going to be like my mom, or I'm never going to be like my dad. And then someone that grew up with you, let's say a good friend that grew up with you, they knew your mom or dad, and then they now know you as an adult, and they're like, you are acting just like your mom or dad. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm not acting like my mom or dad. And the real is that you don't even know it because it's in your subconscious, because those are things that you experienced, that you embedded in before you were 7 years old. And so those are the things that we're talking about, that you don't even realize some of the things. Now, there's beautiful things behind that too. Let's be real, right? There's beautiful things in our subconscious. And then there's these limiting beliefs that are stopping us from what we want consciously. So it's aligning. I'm just going to keep saying it over and over again. It's aligning the subconscious with the conscious. It's getting rid of that stress and angst. Like, who doesn't want to get rid of that in certain situations, whether it's speaking like my one client, whether it's when I talk to people, whether it's when I'm in a large room, or maybe if I'm with a family member and I feel this angst, it's getting rid of that angst in that situation.
Yeah. And living your life to the full. Because, when we first started the podcast, we were talking about limiting beliefs. These are limiting beliefs. Our subconscious holds on to limiting beliefs. And to your point, Stacey, Dr. Lipton talks about that. He says when we're children, we're sort of looking around us in that dream state. So we pick up everything we're seeing. And that becomes our view of the world. Whether we think it is or isn't, it's sitting in our subconscious as the view of the world. And that becomes that limiting belief, or not, right? Depending on the situation. But for many of us, we remember those things that played some sort of emotional, had some kind of emotional, state. And we remember the things that maybe were a little bit traumatic or whatever the case is. But it's how we interpret that subconsciously that then becomes what we're trying to solve here.
Yeah, yeah. And so, this is what we wanted to bring to our listeners, is to know that coaching is absolutely very powerful. We wholeheartedly believe in it, and that is our primary role in what we do. But a lot of coaches will bring different tools into their tool belt that they can actually bring to you. And this is something a little unique. We know that a lot of coaches do assessments. We do those too. Yes, they're very powerful. Yes, the coaching conversations are powerful. Just talking through things, building action plans, building strategy plans, all still important. These are the patterns that keep coming up again and again and again. And that's what we're trying to really remove with these tools. So, as we wrap this conversation up, I think the biggest reminder is that no matter how accomplished we are, no matter how confident we appear, we all carry limiting beliefs and stress. And they're part of us as human beings. We are complex people as human beings. And the real opportunity is deciding whether we're going to let those invisible forces quietly run our lives, or whether we're going to choose to work with them in ways that create more freedom.
That's right. That's exactly right. And the reality is that we have a choice. We have a choice. We have options. There are technologies out there. There are systems out there, right, that we can leverage. So as you're listening, maybe you're asking yourself, where is my life? Do I keep bumping into the same wall? What belief might be underneath that? How is stress shaping the way I show up every day? These are certainly questions I ask myself, right? And most importantly, what might be possible if those walls weren't there anymore? So we really hope today's episode, just giving you a little bit of a new perspective, maybe even a little bit of hope, that changes, don't always have to be a long uphill climb. There's ways to get to them a lot faster and more effectively. And sometimes the right tools at the right time can unlock a whole new way forward.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We'd love to hear what stood out for you. What did you like? What do you want to know more about? Reach out to Tracy Ann and I. And as always, we'll keep bringing you ideas, tools, and real stories to help you lead and live with more intention and less stress.
Yeah, so until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, you have freedom within you, more than you probably realize. If you enjoyed the show, please go to leadershipmomentspodcast.com to subscribe to the podcast or on your favorite player, as well as follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
You can also send us a message on what you like and don't like, or what guest you want us to have on the show.
So until next time,
this is Stacey Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
And I'm Tracy Ann Palmer. Be the change you wish to see in the world.